Hello there, guys. This is a new angle. So I'm gonna start a drawing today. I uploaded a bio, basic artist. Just introducing myself earlier. Um, and I figured I'd just I'd upload another video right now of me starting a drawing, so you guys get a little bit more content and a bit more art. So yeah, I'm gonna be drawing this skull right here. If you could see that, and then I got my paper right here. Still working on the camera setup, so you're gonna have to kind of deal with that for a little bit until I kind of figure out the sweet spot. Obviously my head's really big and in the way right now, but when I'm drawing, I'm gonna be about here, so I feel like that's pretty good. Um, so I'm gonna just kind of start this out. I'm not gonna get too. Just gonna go over what basically I think about when I started drawing, and I mean I was thinking, going to the fundamentals and kind of structuring it more, but I think I'm just gonna start out with, for now, just starting a drawing and bringing it to a certain point, and through the process of the drawing, I can teach you that way for now, and later on down the road, I can package it into a better, more tighter course that would, go through. I like to think of art as like a language. It's basically, I call it visual communication. So, I can go through basically the alphabet, I guess, while I'm doing the skull in a way. So I'm just what I'm using. Not that it matters too much. If I can get it on camera, I just purchased this the other day. It's just like a lead holder, but it's a really thick lead holder. So it's like 5.6 in width. Sometimes I will. I use the wood pencils. I use other lead holders that are thinner lead, but I'll use. I have this. It's hard to get this on camera, but this is like a holder for a wood pencil. It kind of extends it, which is nice. I like to think. I think it's good to think, like if you want to paint also. I mean, if you just want to draw, you can just draw, but if you want to get into painting, it's good to have like that little bit of an extension. It gives you like a painterly approach to drawing, which really helps if you are one of those people like myself that gets too tight and timid. So that's kind of why I've been using this thicker lead, because it gets me involved in the more mass drawing approach. So that's something I can talk about. But let's get this drawing started and get the conversation flowing. But yeah, just get a pencil. It could be a Ticonderoga. It could be a cheap whatever pencil. You just gotta, as long as it makes a mark. Even if it's a pen is fine, but I like to have something I can kind of erase, but pen's good too. So I start with basically a top line. It's basically like a horizontal mark, just marking top and where maybe I'll end the. So I'm looking at the top of the cranium of this skull right here. So this is that's telling me where that boundary is. So I lay it in kind of thick to give me an idea of I give my self a little bit of flexibility rather than drawing a line such as that where it's very skinny and it's very like it's got to be there. This gives me a little bit more fluidity. So that's my top of the skull, and then my bottom of the skull is maybe around there. And see how I just scribble that kind of in there. That's important to keep your drawing loose and keep it light. Technically, like I'm using this might be a 6B right here, which I don't really suggest, but it's good to experiment, and that's kind of what I'm doing now. But I would prefer beginners to use more like a 2B, something that's lighter. I just use this because I'm just kind of trying to experiment with a softer pencil, kind of treating it more like a charcoal drawing. But I would prefer like a 2B if you were gonna do this. So I start to block in the diagonal. So the diagonal, there's two like horizontal lines. And the lines it's kind of an artist's alphabet. These lines of, whether it's a diagonal or another diagonal here. And you notice that I'm using straight lines, not necessarily curved lines. Now, obviously, when we look at nature, we see a lot of curves, and that is nature. That's what makes things look very organic, right? Like plant life and branches, but as an artist, you kind of have to. You don't have to, but these are just rules. They're not just, they're meant to be like bent a little bit and flexed, and so they're not hard. Like I still use a slight curve in a way. Like you can do I call it kind of like a bow, bowed straight line in a way, right? It's got a sort of like, because you do want to keep it organic, but you also want to keep it simple, and straight lines help you to keep it simple and manageable and measurable. You want to be able to like use straight lines excuse me, to basically to measure from. You can, if you do a curve, it's hard to know, there's no points on a curve really. It's hard to, but if you use a straight line, you have a start and a beginning. A curve is a little bit ambiguous, so that's why straight lines are just a great thing to use in the beginning process. So yeah, it's basically top, bottom, and then you're going to throw in some diagonals. And basically it's this is called the block-in stage. So it's basically like you're just blocking they're very searchy. You want to be like searching in this stage, None of my marks right now are tight or precise. Well, in the way they are precise, but in the way they're very loose, right? And like for this, I might just go like this, and it's this big, it's almost, I think of this as like I start going into a bit of shadow, and there's different ways of there's different approaches to this. You could be more linear, or you could be more mass oriented. So I can talk about that a little bit. So linear drawing would be like this. It would be like creating a box, right? And I'm using all lines right here, which is fine. It's a linear approach, which is not what we see in nature, and that's a really good point to talk about. So when you look at nature, we like to think we see lines, but what we're seeing is two values butted up against each other, which causes a hallucination of a line in between things. But really it's just light and shadow that create this illusion or hallucination of a line, but it's really not there. It's just the so that's linear drawing right there. So you could just call that linear drawing, which is fine, and it's a good tool for the artist. It's a tool in the toolbox, but we don't want to constantly use that tool. We want to be very diverse. So now mass drawing is very it kind of flows with nature. It doesn't abstract, like line is abstracting nature, which is important in the beginning process to be able to understand what you're seeing, because there's so much information on this skull. If you just look at this skull, it's very complex, but you can simplify down with the straight lines and the angles. And then there's this thing, mass drawing, which is really a nice tool to have as well, because it allows you to kind of draw as nature is already, which is light and shadow, which is what is really there. So by doing that, we can just, you don't use really line, you're drawing with these almost shapes of value. So I didn't even draw a line there. I just sort of, scribbled in from the, it's like you're working from the inside to the outside, and you're creating this squared value, right? And then this next one, so this is like kind of a darker side. It's almost like where the shadow is. And now this side maybe is just getting some light, so this is like dark light, but it's not in the shadow. And then your top part is just gonna, so this, it's like, oh, well, I have to draw a line for, it's like, no, you don't. You can actually put a value behind that, and see what happened is that light value that's getting hit from the light from the top, and the dark background is creating an illusion of a line, of a straight line. And then the other side, this dark value in the background creates that. So you see how, so that is called mass drawing, which is very effective. But if you're a beginner, I would say, stick with the linear, and then you'll eventually kind of gain a mastery over that linear, and then you'll move into the more mass-oriented approach. But again, it depends how long you've been drawing for. Like, some people will know their strengths and their weaknesses. And like I said, if you're more of a tight drawer like me, usually it's somebody that's done a lot of maybe like illustration type work, comic book drawing, which I did a lot of in my youth. And so it became so comfortable that it became a crutch. And that's something I'm trying to work on. So I need to be focusing more on this mass approach. But there's some people that are, so they kind of draw with they go right into the shadow, but their linear structure is very weak, so they need to work on the linear structure. So it's like, it's this combination of linear versus mass. And I think of linear as more, you talk about the left brain, right brain. I think the right brain is supposed to be more creative. So I think of that brain as more of the mass drawing. It's more like intuitive. And then I think of this linear drawing as more analytical. It's linear, right? It's like A, B, C, D. But that's not how nature works. Nature is it has a pattern, but it's very random, but it's organized, so I think of that as more like analytical, and it's straight and it's narrow. And so I use, so you see, I'm using like a combo. It's great I would say, to eventually use a combination of these approaches. So that's why I have a little bit of a mass approach going on here, where I'm using just shadow and light. I'm playing upon that. So I see, like, especially for something like in this part here, this temporal. This is like where the front plane of the face meets the side plane of the side of the head. So, like, that's then you can kind of, there's a conceptual. If we think of the box, it's like, okay, well, now I can think of, I see this as like, the starting of a side plane. It's not exactly a box, but if you can kind of simplify it to think like, all right, front side, and then this is, or front face, and then this is side facing. So it really helps to gain an understanding of that. And as you can see, I'm really approaching this looser than I would even like to do. Like, this is almost uncomfortable for me. And I just want to be open about that, you know what I mean? Like, I think this is ugly right now. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm losing my drawing and stuff. But that's the challenge that I must face right now. That's like one of the important thing for anybody that's very tight in drawing, is to, in giving up control, I feel a lot of times you gain control. You know what I mean? You're kind of going with the flow of things, and you're not trying to correct every little thing at first. And that's sort of it's the best approach you can have, because you want the drawing to, you don't want it to look exactly like the subject in the first 10 minutes. I feel like if you're doing that, I mean, you want to have the essence of the subject, but I shouldn't be seeing like people putting in eye sockets and nasal cavities. And so obviously I have this, but this isn't necessarily a eye socket, but what it is just a more of a conception of a simplification of just what, if I squint my eyes down, right? If you squint, it actually simplifies that, and I can just see that as one big block of mass. And so I basically, if I just squint, I see a shape here. I see that, this chin drops down in the shadow. It's like a diag. You can see the light is going like this, so it's going like that, right? And let's just see. And I'm not really trying to shade this in perfectly even, but you want to go for that, but you don't want, it's not your intention to, it's not my intention to shade that in perfectly, because I know it's going to change. I look at these shapes and values as like clouds of smoke or something that you're kind of just pushing around. They're just like these vibrating values that can, with the swipe of a hand, can be erased, pushed, shoved. You want to keep it flexible, loose. That's the key in the beginning. Really, that's the key if you can keep it loose and flexible throughout the drawing process, that's even better. You never really want to get too tight until like really the last session of a drawing, where you're really putting, like, there's time for details, but it comes way at the end, I believe. And I've done a good amount of drawings to find that out, and I might even maybe I'll go through some of my old drawings today, and I can post some and show you kind of how I've grown and changed my thoughts on drawing. And I was just so into linear approach that it just didn't it didn't help me anymore. You know, at a certain point, you need to try something new, and I was kind of stubborn. Maybe that's part of my personality, but everybody has their struggles, you know. But this approach really, it's great for people trying to loosen up, and I feel like that's a, you know, maybe that's a good majority of people. I think a lot of people just need to loosen up, but there are those few that could use a little bit more structure, a little bit linear construction. But like I said, it's all about best of both worlds type thing. You know, you don't want to like give up on the linear structure because that's important, but you're gonna wind up losing it in the midst of the drawing. So it's good to get comfortable to know that I'm gonna mess this drawing up. This drawing is gonna get loose. It's gonna get messy. It's gonna, you know, shit's gonna hit the fan, and that's important to expect, right? Our expectations should be like, yeah, I'm gonna just mess this drawing up, but I'm gonna find it too. Like right here, I combined it basically. I thought of this as like one unit, so I connected this and this. But now I see that, you know, maybe I can start picking this out, so I can almost carve into this, and I can carve that out somewhat. You know, it might not be perfect right now, but it gives me, at least now I can see that that's the jaw, and this is like this back part of that cranium, right? And so yeah, I'm just, you know, I'm still loose. I would say the way you know, I'm using this 6B, which is a very, like, it's a bold and more darker value. I would prefer, like I said, a 2B. I'm just experimenting today a bit, and you know, it may work out, it may turn out really bad, but you have to jump into the fire. You know, you have to jump off the ledge, right, and you have to spread your wings, and you know, it's like survival. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. Don't nobody go jumping off any ledges. So I'm not trying to promote suicide at all, or make it a joke. I guess that's bad taste by myself, um, but yeah, I'm just saying, you know, be aggressive, be bold, be fearless. This isn't surgery. This is drawing. It's just paper. It's really hard. I had a hard time, you know. I still have a hard time with that, not keeping drawing so precious. But I've noticed that when you do let down your guard and you let yourself be vulnerable, it just makes you a better artist, and I feel like it makes you a better person. Like I said, this stuff goes hand in hand with life. You'll find a lot of connections, which makes it so fascinating. It's very psychological. It's a very solitary thing to do, to make art, to sit by yourself, to stand by yourself at the easel, and basically throw your heart against that page, you know. And it's not, you know, sometimes it's not going to be pretty. It's hard to accept that you're not good at something right away, or that it's not going to look pretty right away. But nothing looks pretty in the beginning. You know, we all kind of start, like when you're building a house, if I go back to that analogy, it's like, it's a disaster. There's wood everywhere. There's, you know, you gotta demolish if you're tearing down an old house, or if you gotta dig up a ground and level it. It's dirty work. You know what I mean? You're in the construction stage. It's heavy lifting. You're gonna be just, yeah, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be hard. So I think it's good maybe to stop at this stage, and I'm going over 20 minutes, which trying to kind of keep these kind of short and compact, and to the point, and so I don't want to get too rambly, so I'm gonna cut it off now. But just take a look at this. You know, it's not perfect, but this is like maybe I would say, you know, like I spent like 25 minutes on this, right? Or 20 minutes, I guess, with talking and pausing. So this is about like where you know you'd want to be in like 20 minutes. Obviously, different people are going to be at you know different stages, and it's all right if you're not at this stage, but just kind of you really want to be, it's all about self-awareness. It's like, am I not at this stage because I'm holding myself back and I'm afraid to push to that stage, or is it just because I need more time? Like, I had a hard issue with that. I thought I was just slow, but really it was fear that was holding me back. So don't fear this, because it's just drawing, and drawing should be fun, and it should, I don't want to say should, because I don't want to put pressure on ourselves, but you know it can be a very fun experience. I mean, just think of when you were a kid. You know, it wasn't so complicated. We weren't trying to make pretty drawings. You know, uh, so I think what was it, like Picasso said something that it took him like, you know, 10 years to become like this master painter or whatever, but it took him like a lifetime to kind of like tap into that more intuitive childlike approach, which I think is interesting. But yeah, let's I'm gonna cut this off now. You could check out my if you want to check out my Instagram. It's ART Wakened WAKENEDMIND. Sorry about that. I'll probably link it in the bio. All right.